The Violent Femmes, known for Blister in the Sun. Great story. The roots of the band trace back to two of the original members, the bassist Brian Ritchie and drummer Victor DiLorenzo. They played on the streets with a railway hobo named Doorway Dave in Milwaukee.
Yeah, well, I don't know much more about him than that, but they definitely came across all kinds of characters there, and they were honest to God street singers playing punk rock on acoustic instruments because acoustic instruments were better for outdoors. And eventually they were signed by Slash Records, the home of the Blasters, Los Lobos, etc. In about 1983, I was a freelance music journalist in Chicago, and I got a call from the editor of Trouser Press magazine. Trouser Press was a magazine about punk and new wave primarily. The editor asked me, Cary, is Milwaukee anywhere near Chicago? And I said, yeah, why? And he said, because Slash Records has just signed this folk punk group and they're street singers and we'd like a story on them. Well, this was before you could send somebody a SoundCloud or a YouTube or
An
an
MP3
MP3
or, yeah.
an email. And they needed the story right away. So I didn't really get to hear the group in advance. It took me about 90 minutes to get there. And we met in the streets of Milwaukee and did the interviews on the streets. They did a little bit of a demonstration for me. It was amazing. But more amazing than that is that, so they were doing their thing, playing on the streets of Milwaukee. They used to like to play underneath the marquee of various theaters downtown Milwaukee. There was the Oriental Theater and the Downer Theater. I think it was the Oriental that the Pretenders were going to play, and this was their first tour. And they're in Milwaukee, and they're hanging out, doing their sound check. And one of the members of the Pretenders, James Honeyman Scott, who has since passed on, went outside, and there are the Violent Femmes, and he says, "Wow, I dig you guys." And goes in, and the next thing you know, a woman comes out, and it's Chrissie Hynde. Now, the Violent Femmes were basically into blues and folk and jazz, and they didn't even know who the Pretenders were. But lo and behold, Chrissie Hynde said, "Hey, we have an opening act already playing tonight at the Oriental Theater, but maybe you could open for the opening act." So they were invited in off the streets inside to the theater, and lo and behold, this group of street musicians is doing a 3-song opening set for the real openers that were opening for the Pretenders.
Wow.
And afterwards, Chrissie Hynde invited them to stick around, have some food and drink, and see the rest of the show. And they hung out. And Slash Records was distributed by Warner Brothers. The Pretenders were on Warner Sire. Somewhere in that mix, Slash Records from Los Angeles heard about the Violent Femmes, and they were signed.